Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with our first Grand Finalist, the three-time and current world champion, and widely considered the greatest player of all time, the Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, facing off against one of the only players who can hold a candle to him, the Frenchman from Team Liquid, the rank 1 Terran in the world in the blue. It's Clem, in a best-of-7 Terran versus Zerg Grand Finals to the $10,000 Homestory Cup 29 tournament. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. Help me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? I'll talk about Homestory Cup 30 later. 1,872 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better as the first Reaper comes in to poke and prod at the Lings, and close positions means it gets here well before the first Queen is out to dispute its presence. So 6 Zerglings, just enough to keep it at bay and make sure the drones won't be suffering the brunt of it. Clem taking a lot of damage as he tries to move back through and target fire, but the Zerglings claw him almost apart. He will heal, but it'll take some time, as the Queen's already pushing out. We're, of course, on the new StarCraft 2 patch. We started with 8 workers, but so far, from what I've seen, these players just using that as a little bit more time to collect their thoughts before doing a very similar strategy to what we saw from, well, the last several years, to say the least. And speaking of, a third command center, even before Starport for Clem, which means he's entirely confident that Serral is not going for any sort of cheeky early aggression, or even non-cheek related aggression. Give me, edit it out. That was weird. I don't. And the Reaper gets into the main, and did he actually see the gas? He did. So he knows the timing. And Serral, well, if there was ever a map to go mute us, this is our only map in the new map pool that is close air positions. Wherever you expand, you're going to be headed away from your main base. And obviously this means air units like Medivacs and Mutalisks are going to be significantly stronger and much more obvious. And this is possibly one of the most obvious Muta builds. Well, okay, I don't want to call it too early, but if you were ever going to go Mutas, this is the map. And just because it's obvious doesn't make it less good. And that's kind of a story of Serral's career, where you might know it's coming, but can you stop it? Feels like so many times you're just tied to the tracks and the train is coming. It's not moving very fast, but it'll get there eventually. And Serral doesn't seem to get tired. In fact, his opponents are the ones that usually run out of energy first. The Spire is on the way. A 5-minute Muta build. Despite starting with less workers, and the Zergling counterattack already gets a couple SCVs. And the fact that Clem is going for the 3-2-1-1. 3 command centers, 2 barracks, a factory, a starport. He's going to have the double medevac drop, which is usually a great strength for Terran. That's really, especially, well, the Zerglings just catch the Hellions and rip them to shreds, I say. The Reaper gets a couple more Zerglings, but that is a tiny consolation prize compared to the danger of the Mutas that are currently building up. So Clem will have a whole lot of Marines, which is a strong counter to Mutas, but by the time the medevacs can come across the map, it's very likely Serral will already have the Mutas out, and this goes from a potential deadly attack to a massive risk. So, struggling with... So, there's a new button. Yes, a new button is how many players are calling it, where you can load all nearby units. So historically, Clem has been by far the best at microing his medevacs, but we added a Clem button to all dropships. Technically, it works on Overlords and Warp Prisms, but now all you have to do is click the medevac, or Overlord or Warp Prism. Technically, I'm legally obligated to say they also include it, and all the units nearby will be slurped up into it. Before, this required you to select all the units and then select the medevac, but now you just have to select the medevac, which might seem like a nice new buff. But for players like Clem, it gives you another second or two where you can micro against Banelings. And a second or two really matters when players are playing at nearly 10 actions a second. So, the Mutas, either spotted or suspected, Clem with 55 SCVs already has a pretty comfortable economy. Is Serral going to go for Burrowed Banes to start? Muta's also got a buff to an extent where they are more reliably targeting targets. Now, that sounds really silly. But before, Mutas would target anything nearby their primary. But now, if a unit can actually fight back, the glaives will prioritize it. The glaives that fling out from the Mutas through their primary target to 2 more targets behind, which means they do more effective DPS. Now, this is somewhat counteracted by the fact that the Widowmine now fires 20% faster. Yes, once it locks on, the Widowmine itself will go off 20% faster. The unit that everybody wanted buffed, the Widowmine, finally gets the love it deserves. So we'll see if Clem uses it, as the Mutas are sharking around. Baneling speed is already gone. Burrow in 12 seconds. And notably, when you go for Mutas, usually the thing you're lacking most is upgrades, as the Mutas themselves at 100 gas a pop. Also important, there's a healing shrine here. Oh, a Burrowed Bane Mine. A healing shrine where you can heal your ground units, which could be especially helpful. Even though Clem has Metavax, the healing shrine doesn't cost any energy. So that's important to know. But Serral, Burrowing Banes, clearly inspired. Right, remember when Scarlet used Burrowed Banes against Bomber in 2014? That was 12 years, or as I like to call it, half of Clem's life ago. How's the back pain? Like and subscribe for Existential Dread. But the Mutas are driven back. Serral ends up losing 3 of them. He's only picked around the edges of the Marines so far. So, the struggle for Zerg here on Rorschach is not so existential, but instead very physical. As getting past the first 4 bases is incredibly difficult, because now every single base that Serral tries to take, even maybe including the gold base to the north, is going to be a risk. Now, the double drop, the Mutas dealing with the medevac. Clem, target fires a couple down. The Zerglings will surround the rest. And he had to know that was a strong probability. But he ends up getting another couple Mutas, which is a pretty solid consolation, actually. Meanwhile, so the biggest struggle with Mutas is 1, getting damage done at all against a Terran who's prepared, and 2, getting to higher tech upgrades. Because a 200 supply Terran army, in a heads-up fight, the Burrowbanes are scouted. Serral unburrows. As well he should. Obviously, the Marines are going to take him out. Another scan. Very efficient with them. Clem already has the 4th command center. It's floating over. But Serral, of course, has his hatcheries online. He's going for a 5th base. But here comes that push. It's 1-1 upgrades across the board, including +1 flyer attack for Serral. The Mutas in the sky, the Lings and Banes underneath. And he's just going to try to run his way by those Widow Mines. A potential double-edged, well, grenade. Which is just a regular grenade. But they don't discriminate. The only unit they don't hit with their splash damage are fellow Widow Mines. Which creates potentially a boon for Serral if he's able to use it well. But the Mutas and Lings are cutting off reinforcements. Multiple Widow Mines will fire, but Serral with a great split is able to minimize the damage, but there's more. Another Widow Mine burrowing. Drilling Claws is done. Letting him burrow faster, but the Mutas on top of everything, and Clem scrambling back to defend. Right over the Baneling Mine. Serral looking the other way. Widow Mine connects. Medevacs are taken out, and Serral compounding his supply lead now. And this is exactly what he needs to do to compete against the Terran army. He's taking out the army. He's taking out the economy. And he's limiting the map control. All the while, he techs up into Hive. He's still building Mutas because they're still getting the work done for him. The Medevacs taking the direct path as the Muta flies. And that's the issue. The Muta does fly. Widow Mine's taking big bites on the way out. Great APM out of Clem. But he notices the other ones. He deals with it. There's a few burrowed Zerglings in both the natural and the main. A Thor is on the way. The losses from Clem, dramatic, but relatively superficial. He's already started 3-3. He lost actually slightly less than Serral did. But for a Zerg player on 5 bases to 3.5 or so, obviously trading evenly, the tie goes to the leader. Clem Trying to take some map control, but the Zerglings will unburrow. He actually tries to take down the missile turret with the Zerglings. He's still in the main. It helps out. And the Thor is here, but the Mutas will eventually Magic Box split on top of it with that hold position or stop position command and easily take it out. Serral tried to take the cheeky gold base to the 12 o'clock, and Clem gives it a slight reprieve, but then we'll finish it off. Adrenal Glands on the way. SCVs moving past the worker-only path. Unfortunately, there's nowhere for them to go except the Units Lost tab like this. The Widowmines, though, will fire so quickly. And another benefit of the Widowmines firing more quickly is obviously Mutas struggling more to take them out before they get their shots off. And Clem, despite the losses yet again, he's still at 187 supply. He's at 123 army supply, which is more than Serral can get by conventional means. But he is getting an Ultraless Cavern back at home. Adrenal Glands +2 melee and +3 Carapace on the ground. Serral still maintains near total map control. Nice of Clem to almost open the door for him. The Healing Shrine finally finding some use, though accidentally. Serral gets the hit, and he... Well, it's about a dozen Marines, and it's enough that the Mutas might be able to win the fight on their own. A Widowmine retargets it. Serral tries to split, but Clem's ahead of him on it. Meanwhile, the Planetary Fortress, and there's no vision of this. He's scanning the main. He spots the Ultraless Cavern. But he doesn't see the army that's hitting his 4th base. The Planetary Fortress will be overrun. He targets a bunch of Banes that Serral was trying to keep alive for as long as possible. The Mutas! The Mutas! No! He's trying to fight the army on the field, but the Mutas cut down. And oh no. Well, Serral may drive the army back, but 7 Mutas died in the process. I feel like this doesn't really reflect the situation, as taking out the Planetary was also a pretty huge deal. Serral with multiple groups of Mutas. Clem trickling across the map, 199 supply across the board. As both players, Serral with more in the bank, though not too much gas. And he doesn't have his Hive Tech online. Clem is finishing 3-3. This is the strongest he's going to get for the foreseeable future. He needs to get as much possible done now, or he may get it done never. The Marines and Marauders are stimming. They take out one of the hatcheries. There's burrowed Zerglings providing some vision, because Serral knows the map is dark and full of Terrans. And he's trying to light it up however he can. The creep spread is mediocre. The combination of not too many queens and the Mutas not needing it as badly. Trying to come in with the army. The Ultras pop out. A Ghost Academy is on the way. Ghosts were also changed. We're not going to say nerfed or buffed, but Snipe no longer can be interrupted, but the Ghost has less HP and costs more supply. So, it also does more base damage on its auto attack, which I'd say if you're ahead and can build up the Ghost count is a pretty decent buff. But if you're behind, it makes the Ghost even harder to mass up. So we'll see if Clem actually decides to go for them, as he's been beaten back to 3 bases, even if he takes out Serral at the 12 o'clock. The drop in the main, ill-fated. And the Mutas will take out the rest. Clem trying to keep the pressure on. He's actually taken the 4th base down the center. The Zerglings getting in again and whittling down the SCV count. But he still has 60 of them going up. Another key point is the lack of orbital commands. Usually we see the Iron Bank. We've got 8, 10 orbital commands at this stage. You could scan half the map and drop mules on the other half. But that's simply not the case here. Clem struggling economically as Serral has ground out 2 extra bases. He's got fully operational El Chapo-lisks here. +3 Carapace, chitinous plating, as well as the Ultraless speed upgrade. As he tries to come in, though, the Widowmines ignore the armor entirely. Splits back. And Clem, well, the Widowmine slamming into the Ultras. At half HP, their Infestors on the way, but they're not completed yet. The Mutas still finding success right up until the Widowmines smack their faces into oblivion. And almost every single Widowmine is taken down. The Queens trying to patch together the Ultras, but they're taking terrible, terrible damage. The Zerglings, the Widowmine field is recharging. Serral doesn't actually have the Overseers to clean it up either. There's 5, 6 Widowmines. He drops into the main. Another Muta taken out. The Infestors have been revealed. But how many Overseers? 0. That's not very many. And caught in this back corner, the Infestors, Fungal. How many? Oh, what are you doing? He's dropping. It's raining men. And it's a disaster all at the same time. But the Zerglings, oh, no, 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 no! The Widow Mines take a massive bite, and the fact they're able to fire more than once is a huge boon. Serral, the healing shrine, gonna get some slight reprieve. Though I feel like neither player is actually acknowledging the fact this healing shrine exists. Clem could be using it to heal up his bio instead of the Medivacs, whereas Serral could be using it to heal the Ultras if he's ever able to get that far. There's some Corruptors on the way now. He wants to deal with the Medivacs and potentially Liberators more directly, though there are no Liberators on or above the field. Serral's grabbed the gold base again, which is a huge deal right now. Clem has 5 bases himself. The Ghost lining up some shots. The Widow Mines scattered throughout. But the Baneling gets an incredibly efficient hit. And the rest of the Widow Mines are dragged out. Well, most of them. Microbial Shroud, which is now by default on the Infestor, but it still costs 100 energy. Fungle's still by far the strongest choice in most scenarios. But the Microbial Shroud could break a defensive position. It's just he simply doesn't have the energy right now. The Serral Fester will burrow. The unit that I think we could credit Serral with getting nerfed half a dozen times. Though Microbial Shroud is now available by default, and it can be cast from further range. Microbial Shroud reduces range damage by 50%, and that's before armor, is an incredibly important point, which makes the Ultralisk even stronger. But that Burrow Fester, and he doesn't have the scans here. The Ultra count isn't high enough is the problem right now. Even though there's the okay, it's high enough. It's high enough. The Infestor, but there's a Widow Mine right there. He can't really unburrow in this location. The Ultras are coming in, but the Infestor pops up. He gets the Fungal. The EMP's too late, and the Ultras will eviscerate whatever they can get their claws on. Still, microing back. Another Fungal catches the center mass, and the Medivacs are taken down, so there's nothing to retreat. Serral cleaving his way through, but with Widow Mines and Ghosts coming up, Clem will be able to hold for now. Serral, the Inca, despite the fact he has the gold base, the main base, and the natural mining out, and importantly, every base, every gas geyser has 500 less gas, down from, well, let's say 2250, because that was the previous patch. We tried some other numbers, but essentially a little bit over 10% less gas in each base, which adds up, or I guess it doesn't add up more accurately. But that means you can't get nearly as many tech units off of the same amount of bases. And this affects Zerg as much, if not more, than Terran. Though Zerg is able to usually get more bases if it's going mildly well. But Marines and Marauders are not very gas-heavy. But the counters to them are, in the late game, Infestors, Banelings, Ultralisks, all incredibly gas-heavy. Right now, Serral's army is about the same amount of gas, and that's probably because he has 100 Zerglings. Queens technically count towards army value, and they're only minerals, so arguably the best units. You know that's right! Not now, Brenda. Alright, the Widow Mine, another chunk. Bit of Prairie Dog micro, pops it up and out to minimize the chance of firing at something less than ideal. That Widow Mine is taken out. The SCVs, just a few of them vulnerable at the southern base. The hatchery is sniped off. The Widow Mines hit him on the way out, but this is an orbital command. His main base hasn't lifted, but without a planetary, another couple dozen SCVs dead as the Zerglings just ripping through the mineral eye. And Clem's starting to lose his presence on the map. What a game. These two, so evenly matched. But it feels like Serral has kept the momentum. The thing is, he can't attack reliably. He can counterattack, he can backstab, but every heads-up fight usually ends with most of his units' heads getting taken off. But this many ghosts, well, the Serral Fester, the ghosts, that Infestor! How does he do it? And he's done it again! He can't keep getting away with it, but somehow he does. The Fungal, the Infestor pops up, gets a chunk of the ghost. The Zerglings in the northern base. More SCVs dead, more of the army cut off. The momentum is solidly shifting towards the finisher. But wait, without being on creep, the Ultras cannot outrun the snipes. Finally, Clem uses the healing shrine. There's an air blocker, so you can't heal your air units, but he can repair them if he ever has the motivation to do so. Serral, the issue now is he might have the drones, but he's running out of bases to mine from. Another Serral Fester. The bio army throughout. Clem still has a pretty solid amount of mining. Despite the losses on the field, he can replace these units relatively quickly. Serral's now lost 12,000 more resources, including 5,000 more gas. Fungal comes out just a little bit late to catch everything on the ground. The medevacs are headed the other way. And, oh, pops the Infestor. The snipe can no longer be interrupted by damage. You can only interrupt it by murdering the ghost, which I'm sure most Terrans and Blizzard themselves are pretty happy with. But we'll see. Meanwhile, picks up some more. And the medevac count, what is this medevacs for all policy here? I can respect it, I approve, but maybe not right now. No liberators. This is so much potential army supply and just resources. How many? 15? That's maybe about 7 or 8 too many. It just kind of builds up over time. He had different battle groups throughout the map, but the Banelings trying to roll in. But the creep is the deciding factor here most of the time. Is there an Infestor? No. Clem will retreat back. He picks up the units on the front line. A drop to the north, and Serral has nothing there to defend the base. The 4 Marauders are going to take it out. It's a disaster for Serral economically. That was the base that was giving him, and he loses another one. While both myself and Serral clearly look in the wrong direction, Clem pops up and he puts down yet another hatch because every single hatchery is closer and closer to Clem's base. The Liberators now, looks like Clem has acknowledged that he may have gone a little too far. The Widow Mine taking out some of the SCVs as well. Clem at 130 to 104 army supply. Serral is flat broke. He's yet to be broken. But he's been playing this very attrition-based composition. It's all about winning a fight. Maybe not winning a fight, but trading well enough so that way you can rebuild and win another one. Because Terran cannot rebuild as quickly. But he hasn't done that. Not well enough. And now Clem still has at least one more base to mine from on his side. The top left corner. And the Widow Mine's starting to rack up the kills. 15,000 resource disparity. 6,000 more gas for Serral. That is now a base and a half. There are 4,000... there's 4,000 Vespine gas per base. With 2 gas geysers now. Which is not a lot. That is... Clem's up to 3,500 gas value in his army. And Serral's at 166 supply. He's got those Infestors that have essentially he's built his career off of and continues to lay the foundations. The Widow Mines will recharge just in time to take bigger bites out of these Zerglings. As Serral getting desperate, a Microbial Shroud just kind of thrown out there. Medevac taken down. Zergling counters. The lack of planetary is quite painful here, as Clem has denied 2 bases simultaneously, but he just denied 2 of Serral's by taking them out. And Serral is almost completely broke. He's actually taken the southern base here, which I guess, oh, it also has half gold minerals. A twist base there, giving you significantly more income, about 40%. Well, you return 7 minerals per trip instead of 5 at gold minerals. Still the same amount total, but you mine them more quickly, which is pretty important in this sort of scenario. Clem is maxed out, though he doesn't have much in the bank. He's got 10 ghosts, 10 Widow Mines, 15 medevacs still. Serral has 69 drones, which usually is nice enough, but the Queens... Serral on the ropes, and the Queens! The Frenchman guns down the rest of the monarchy. Another revolutionary tactic. And there's an Infestor! How does he do it? The Infestor's popping up from where you least expect them. But the Ghosts will get there first. It's right on the edge of the scan. That Infestor, it's not moving. He doesn't see the worm sign. Serral, he needs a fungal. He's bleeding out on the field. All over it. Always important to have your lumbar support Infestor. Serral agrees. The Zerglings continue to dart into the southern base. And Serral. Well, he's successful at limiting Clem's economy, but is he successful at breaking him? He hasn't been able to deal with any of the core bases on the high ground. It's always been the outlying ones. The Infestor pops out, misses the mark on the fungal, almost completely. I think he caught one Marine. There's another one, and that's the... No, he misses again! And the Widow Mines, and Serral getting desperate. He's going fishing, but Clem isn't taking the bait. Clem, the worker-only path, putting in extra work here. Though, it is a little complicated to bring your own units down. The medevacs, the Zerglings. Clem at 520 average APM to Serral's leisurely 490. Another Infestor is taken out. The snipes line up in Ultralisk, hard to miss. And he just can't expand. He's mining from the gold. Serral has the income lead, but Clem still has the more solid bases to work with. More Zerglings will unburrow, but he tucks himself behind the mineral line. A Ghost will be taken down, but there's just not the surface area. Serral is... Well, he's playing like someone with 3K in the bank. But we know he's actually broke. There's another Infestor! He throws out a fungal. The Corruptors might be able to knock down some of this. The Widow Mines work both ways. The Planetary Fortress is helping out. Retreats further back. Banelings rolling through. The reinforcements on the way, and the Planetary will be the backstop he needs to turn this around. Try some Burrowed Banes. We haven't seen those for 20 minutes. I don't think we'll see him again. Another Zergling attack. Just incessant. The Zerg rush. And the Planetary... Not the Planetaries. The Orbital Commands are in the air. Just like the outcome of this game. But Clem has put it solidly in his favor. He has survived the onslaught. And Serral is almost entire... Another one! Oh, a full medevac is taken down. And Serral, through the fire and fury, has managed when he needs it most. It feels like he just gets exactly what he needs. Another Infestor, gonna be caught. The fungal he can't turn. The Zerglings. And, well, there's still 2 Infestors. That's it? The Zerglings again on the base. And both players down to 160 supply. Widow Mines are firing yet again. Serral has lost 10 Overseers, 1,000 Zerglings. Mutas are but a dream of the distant past. A Liberator covering the base. And does he see the worm sign? Clem, he's dropping mules. The Ultras. The Widow Mine is taken out at the last second. The Liberator, almost uncontested. The SCVs will get away. And cutting off the reinforcements, but, well, the medevacs will slurp up. There's almost no Corruptors. There's only 2 Queens left. There's still 100 Zerglings on the map. What are you doing, Corruptors? Not now. You can't do this now. The Caustic Spray will be taken out. And Clem restabilizing while Serral... He has the income because of the gold base. A couple Ghosts will be caught. Does he have Cloak? No! A big oversight, but retreating back, that's so many Zerglings. The Widow Mine, a Widow Mine drop sent out, but Serral, he's holding. What? No. No. No, Clem. No. Clem, did anything even happen? Like, he has 3 Ghosts. So, the army supply is 15 medevacs, which is 30 of the army supply, but... What? No. He got me again. Oh wait, did he pull an Hydra? Oh my god, he may have pulled an Hydra. So, for those who don't know, more than half of Clem's life ago, Hydra GG'd out of a game that he was winning. Because he put so many workers into his gas geyser, he thought he had none left. And we didn't have worker counts at the time. And also because he had a tendency to do that. But I can't... I gotta go to the Clem cam. This is clearly a frustrating game with the amount of infestors. I didn't want... Clem. So the corruptors come in. He's scanning for infestors in this moment. And the moment he looks away, surprise, fungal! It's not going great. And that's a lot of Zerg. He's looking at the Widowmine drop. He's looking at the army. The infestor gets taken out. No. Like, that's a lot of Zerg. That is Serral's entire army. He has committed everything here. This is an easier army to beat than almost any army he's faced. Even though it looks huge between Widowmines and the defensive position, it is not over. I mean, Clem thinks it is. But Serral actually is mining off of like 1.5. He's only got 300 minerals left here. Yeah, he's almost mined out. Clem only needs... No. Well. Clearly. Well, let me know your thoughts. But Clem maybe misjudging it a bit. Okay, it's at this point I must mention, and I probably should have done it at the start, but this is a bracket reset match. Clem was not defeated throughout the entire tournament. So if he wins this best of 7, then he just wins the whole tournament. That's it. Game over, man. Because he has yet to lose a series. Serral, on the other hand, has lost a series. I won't tell you to who. We might see it later, but... Which means he's coming from the loser's bracket. So that's Clem's advantage. Now, I'm not saying that increases the likelihood he'll tap out maybe a bit too early. But I'm not saying that either. So Clem technically only has to win that second best of 3. But that's not something you'd ideally want to do. And after 30 minutes, it's clearly not really factoring in so much as Clem just... Well, game 2 on Fear and Faith. And, well, I'd like to take this time to mention that this is Homestory Cup 29. For those who don't know, this has been going on since, I want to say the first one was 2010, maybe early 2011. But on 10 and 20 and soon to be 30, there's been some big events featuring all your favorite players, some of your favorite casters, including someone named Winter. So you can check out the link in the description or in the pinned comments even, because I know nobody reads the description. But Homestory Cup 30 will be at Snow World, which I appreciate, on April 8th to 11th of 2027. Yeah, you got a lot of time to contemplate it, but get your tickets fast, because they will run out, though there are a lot of them, especially of the basic tickets. I think they're pretty reasonable. If you can get there, it's about 40 euros a day. So, and it'll be a 4-day event, though the playoffs are going to be on this Saturday and Sunday. And I'll be going, if that tilts the needle for anyone. But I'm looking forward to it a lot, as they've always been ridiculously fun. There's so many people for Homestory Cup 20, especially, right before COVID, but where, like, well, I was debating it, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't really know anyone there. Okay. Yes, you do. You all watch StarCraft. It's not exactly the most widespread community nowadays. Most people have been involved for quite a while, and even if they haven't, you all speak the same language. And honestly, every time I've gone... It's probably a self-selecting group, but every time I've gone to Germany, I meet plenty of people that speak better English than I do. So, if you do happen to be from outside or all the way across the pond, then I still think I fully and with no qualms recommend it. And also, I mean, they've already admitted this. Take TV, Take TV, who host these events. Essentially, it started with StarCraft, but they've graduated into a much larger production organization. Apparently had to fight just to get this event because they're really not going to make money on it. Okay? They're really hoping, and part of the reason I'm here promoting it so early is because they're hoping not to lose money. Because putting on an event of this magnitude for the relatively niche StarCraft 2 audience is not something that is cheap. And deciding to rent out an entire snow world for, or at least a significant portion of it, for an entire extended weekend is also not the cheapest thing. So we're letting you know, and you'll get some other reminders, but at least check out the page. And you can, even if you don't plan on attending or you can't, then you can support the prize pool or the production in other ways if you got the means of motivation. So make sure to check it out if you got the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it, but it's a long way off. I don't need to stress about it. That's Take's job. It's my job to talk about game number 2. What? What do you mean they're the wrong or... This was game 1. Okay, well, don't worry about that. I don't... And again, Serral is a little bit closer to winning that best of... Another... Mutas? But again, if Serral wins the best of 7, we have another best of 3. And if Clem wins, he wins the tournament. But I expect drama either way. What is that filler comment? I expect drama either way, really? Well, it's true, but also it sounds very dumb. Spire halfway done. Baneling, is this a Muta? He doesn't have Evo chambers. This is a 2-base Muta timing. Clem built his 3rd command center under the watchful eyes of the Overlord. I don't... Are those eyes? And back at home, double engineering bay. How many barracks has Clem added on? Barracks, 1 and 2, but the 3rd barracks is pretty far off. And he's going double engineering bay, which the 3rd base timing was clearly late. He had no vision of the gas. There's 7 mutas on the way. So we're going to have a very similar sort of timing from Serral to Rorschach, but actually this is significantly quicker mutas. Clem, I think, realizing some of the scenario is just kind of chilling at home. He's already building missile turrets, so I think the 3rd base timing and the lack of queens overall has given away the plan here. Serral is doing a Muta Baneling all-in. He has no evolution chambers. He's going straight for Baneling speed, which this needs to do damage. Clem, oh, the Widow Mine taken out. Only a single SCV repairing, just not enough. Keeping him busy. Clem is going for double upgrades. He already has more workers, which means if Serral does not contaminate on the Widow Mine production facility, aka a factory, and he tried to sneak the Widow Mine behind that factory, but Clem actually supply blocked as well. Gonna finish up 1 depot, but a whole bunch of Lings and Banes are coming across the map. Serral, it's still an obligation to get the damage done here. Clem is in a defensive position, but he just doesn't have that many units. And oh no, oh! Well, that's not a good start. That is so many Banelings. 1-1 is on the way, a couple Widow Mines, but the delay on the additional Widow Mines and the commitment to the upgrades, he's going to get a huge chunk of the Banelings with the Widowmine, but Serral is all in. And now he's all out. 2-0. Game 1, back and forth. Game 2, more one-sided than a Mobius strip. He just kind of dies. That's like a ladder build out of Serral. That's not supposed to kill... Well, it is supposed to kill the Terran. It's just it so rarely does. Clem, he tried to... he's leaning on the 3cc. In my humble and modest opinion, which many people in comments, illustrious, smart, very smart people, they're obviously in the comments already liked and subscribed. But in my humble and modest opinion, going 3cc blindly in current patch is near suicidal. Especially if you just show the Zerg your 3rd CC. There's enough ambiguity in most builds, and there's enough ability, because Overlords are slightly slower, which is to counteract the lower worker start, so getting that scouting info. If you don't hide the 3rd CC, the Zerg can build up for several minutes to counter. It really doesn't matter too much what you're doing because you've invested 400 minerals in a command center and the mining tab on the SCV. So, Clem just giving away that info to the Overlord, I think, significantly contributed to Serral's ability to just crush in that scenario. Clem, coming up empty. 2 games in a row. Another pull first. I neglected to mention because I was too busy promoting Homestory Cup 30, by the way, April 8th to 11th of 2027. Info below. Like and subscribe. That Serral went pool first in the previous game as well. Which gets you an earlier queen. It cuts into your economy, but is much safer against the first Reaper and any additional Reapers that may come out, which I wouldn't be surprised if Clem starts to lean on more micro-oriented builds. But I can't help but feel Clem a little tilted, as between leaving the game and... I'm not going to say Rorschach was a winning position for Clem, but it certainly wasn't a losing one. Think for the Grand Finals of a major tournament, the threshold has to be like 2% chance of winning or less against Serral. And it was at least 20 times that. I think that on Rorschach, Clem, if you play that out with a fresh mindset, at least 50-50. So, Serral clearly in his head. And Serral, coming from the loser's bracket, actually had to play significantly more games. But it just doesn't seem to affect him. He's a machine. Or maybe he's just Finnish. Porque no los dos. The Reaper, the Queen. Hey! Churlish! Insubordinate! Chicanerous! And deplorable. Brenda, what are you saying? I'm just voicing my displeasure. Well, could you do it more quiet? No! I don't... Sorry. I blacked out for a moment. Serral with the double extractor trick. Getting a couple more drones out. Trying to get... Is he gonna... He's at 0 in gas. Pulling entirely out of gas to maximize those minerals after getting Zergling speed. And, oh, Clem comes back around and he finishes off the drone. A painful, but not particularly devastating hit. Well, if he loses another drone... Serral's only at 27 right now. And while the larva spawns... The 3 larva... The OG larva spawns slightly faster. Talk about this. It is still very painful to lose any amount of drones, especially just to the first Reaper. It's not like Clem committed to an early Reaper or proxy or anything. No, it's just a Reaper. It's just, you know, the Reaper. You don't usually fear it, but Well, Clem's Reaper, on the other hand, might command a little more respect. Cloak Banshee on the way. As Clem finally switching it up. He's avoided the third command center. And he's invested instead in the starport. The barracks, the factory, the starport, the 111. The Destiny Cloud Fist build. I heard it called in some sort of fever dream. But... the Reaper's still poking and prodding. But the Zergling counter. There's a Hellion and a Marine. He gets one SCV. He's actually going to get the Marine. The Banshee is spotted, which is very important. Did he get up the ramp to see the tech lab upgrading? You have to assume. You have to assume that it's going to have cloak. Even if you don't see the tech lab. The problem is if you expect it to have cloak and it doesn't, you're okay. If you expect it not to have cloak and it does, you probably lose the game. So you simply cannot take that risk. Especially with Serral having such a relatively late layer. It's not going to be quick mutas this time. But he gets the Zerg. The Zerg aren't sending their best. You got to build a wall. He just gets in. Clem trying to be super efficient by not overbuilding depots, but it'll cost him a whole lot of mining time and several SCVs. The Banshee, it picks up a couple kills. I think mostly Zerglings. Maybe some creep tumors. No drones, thus. Well, now he gets a drone. Adding on. Using that little high ground. Will Clem try to run by? He's tempted, I'm sure, but not again. It's happening again. A lot of the SCVs are badly bruised from earlier, and there's not that much at home to defend. It's just 5 Zerglings. But 2 more SCVs down. 4 drones dead to the Banshee. And the Hellions are going to try to run by. There's enough Zerglings to delay this, but not enough to actually kill it, even on creep. He's building a few more. But Clem, he's tempted. But he pulls out at the last moment. Which, well, leaves some people disappointed, but it's probably a smart move economically. The Hellions darting in again, and this time Serral, well, now he's too deep. And too greedy. Reaper gets taken out, 1 Hellion as well. Clem, no engineering base, is building up towards a relatively early tank push. The 4th base under literal fire. The Banshee with 7 kills. Did he not build a 2nd Banshee? Well, we don't talk about that. Banshee was taken out. Serral at 70 drones. Take it off. Get off my creep! Great job, Susan. Thank you. What? Double engineering bay, but already an infestation pit for Serral. So Serral climbing the tech tree faster than a bamboo shoot here. And Clem, on the other hand, wait, he doesn't have upgrades. He started an armory. He's gonna go Hellbats? Yeah, but he's at 0-0, and he's not adding any more yet. He's focused on this time, but battling speed is already done. This is not gonna happen. Even with near perfect micro, which Clem is, well, he picks up. But the Bailing's rolling into the 3rd. 10 SCVs will pay the ultimate price. Serral knew that Clem was clearly focused on the other side. And he might pick off a Baneling or 2. But I feel like after those first 2 games... Hey, boys, in the pipe 5x5, am I right? He's blocking it. The siege tank was blocked in by a changeling, assuming he was trying to move out at all. There is a hive on the way. Well, Clem doesn't even... He's not even close to 1-1. The double drop. Actually standing by while Clem trying to keep busy. Serral is lacking an anti-air that isn't queen-based. He has 1 infestor and 7 queens and whatever amount of spore crutters. But there's no creep in the main base, which is actually quite an oversight. This is a pretty huge deal right now. Our main base is surprisingly large. And it can fit a lot of dudes in it. Which it has in common with your mother. And the double drop. Still a threat. The Zerglings anchored back at home, allowing Clem to keep the pressure on the edge of the creep. Finally, Serral starting to move it forward. And that is probably the saving grace, is the mediocre creep spread here. Allowing Clem to stay very active on the map. Though combat shield is still a long way off. Definitely a mistake as well. But the siege tanks tucked into position. There's like a set of fences protecting them. The fungal could be deadly, but he gets away before Serral's able to cast it. The double drop. The medevacs could be targeted. One taken down, another one as well. But the Marines doing a lot of damage on both sides, and he takes out the tanks. Serral will collapse on all this. The fungal secures the kills. The siege tanks target firing dozens upon dozens of banelings, but Serral pulls them back before it can get too damaging. And Serral is up by 20 supply, and he has Hive Tech done. Starts Adrenal Glands, and I'd imagine an Ultralisk Cavern momentarily. Burrow, more important for the Infestors to keep them alive. Those burrowed Festers are just such an incredible key. A Zergling sprinting by. Clem actually still pretty high on supply, but this is... these are some empty calories of supply here. Clem is on 5 racks, 2 factory, but he's on Marines, Widowmines, Marauders, the M&M. And with the medevacs to keep him in check, but Ultralisk Cavern is halfway done. Clem is keeping the pressure on, but potentially at the cost of his later game. But he needs to do something sooner rather than later, because Serral is already 85 drones, 5 bases, well, at least continually trying for a 5th base. Clem does have a 4th, and the Widowmines are taking quite a toll on the Zerglings and Banelings. This is not a planetary! Oh no. He's actually going to save some SCVs with a command center, which is a slight benefit of not having a planetary there yet. Spire begins, and Clem still very high on supply. But Serral is closing in. He's going to have an upgrade advantage as Zerg, which is already somewhat rare, especially this decisive. Did he get chitinous plating? He has not yet upgraded anything Ultralisk related. The Zerglings darting in again before the planetary can complete. There's a single Widow Mine. It's not quite in position to deal with this, but here we go. Let's go to the Clem action cam. There's your warning. But the drop on the left, on the right, the Venn diagram of freedom holding it down the center. He picks up, and for now, Clem doing what he can on every front, and he needs to keep the pressure on so badly right now. The double drop. The Liberators trying to hold it together. 2-2 is done. Clem is near 200 supply. It's not going to get any easier. The Liberator's driven away, but he's going to siege him up in a better location. The main army is still trying to deal with the Zerg, but that means a lot of the supply is committed on the other side of things. Repositions the Liberators, the Fungal in the front. The Widow Mines all out in front as well, but there's no units to back it up. Clem is darting forward and tearing through. He takes out the base with ease. The rest of the units, the Widow Mines, he doesn't want to burrow them all together because the Banelings will easily blow them apart. The Liberators were taken out, repositioning, resetting all of his workers, making sure he has as much as he can. The reinforcements dealing with the counterattack as well. 7 SCVs dead. The Widowmine's going to get big hits. The main army is in a very tough position, but he's able to pick up and get out before it gets too terrible. And Clem drawing the supply near even as Serral tries to deal with the attacks on every side. And for now, Clem will be driven back. But Serral, well, the Infestors, the Fungal, just a little bit too slow. He slurps him up. And he evades the Fungal growth. Clem trying to break through on every front to mild success, but the counterattacks, another 5 SCVs dead to the combination efforts of the Widow Mine and the Siege Tank. Yeah, Clem kills 5 SCVs. Friendly fire isn't. And 3-3 is about to complete. Serral did not get Ultralisk speed, which is a pretty huge deal, especially off of creep. That means that the Ultras are significantly slower than Stim Marines and Marauders. And that's where the fungal comes in, of course, but the difference is a lot smaller with that speed upgrade, as you might expect. The Marauders looking to tank as many Banelings as possible. Serral not looking to let that happen. The drops driven back. And Serral is still working off just the Ultralist base composition. Oh, the left side gets caught, gets killed. Every single unit in the fungal, take it out. Notably, no Ghost Academy for Clem. He's not willing to slow the game down. And honestly, that's to his strength. At some point, he's playing fast and loose, though. One fungal. If he gets slowed down enough, without the ghosts, there is no recovery. If he loses one fight decisively enough, he'll lose the rest of them. Still, though, this army is technically better if you have at least 500 APM. We'll see. The Banelings are rolling through. The Fungals are okay. The Corruptors are knocking down some of the Medivacs. Clem retreating. Down 30 supply. Serral refilling. These are Changelings, so no reinforcements to be had, as that's Clem's 5th base to the north. The Ultras kited down. Another couple take it out. The Queen's almost entirely drained of energy, trying to hold the front line, but, well, the Royal Army's not going to be enough. The Ultras take it down. The Corruptors are chewing through the Medivacs, despite the fact the ground army is actually overrunning for Clem. 11 more SCVs dead. The Queen's caught in front. The Liberators doing what they can. The Corruptors take it out. Widowmines scattered throughout. The breadcrumbs trailing back across the map. But Serral has ground out an even greater income lead. The Bio Army in autumn colors. The Medivacs both running out of energy and ability to heal, because he just keeps moving back and forth, but it looks like he's moving into the unit's lost half. Another chunk of Marines and Marauders is caught and killed. The Widowmines taking another big bite. The Zerglings unburrow in the mineral line. The Liberator will cover it. Serral throws out a fungal. A bit optimistic on that one. Chitinous plating. Well, the lack of Ultralist speed. Wait, he doesn't even have chitinous plating. Oh, that's a huge oversight. I don't know if he can tell because Clem usually target fires so well, it seems like. But Serral actually didn't start either Ultra upgrade. That is a ridiculous deal. And I think he's just giving Clem the credit like, oh yeah, Ultras just die when Clem's involved. But they shouldn't be dying that quickly. Oh, that's huge. He doesn't have speed nor chitinous plating. And that is why Clem is starting to make some progress against them, despite this being such a relatively hard counter composition. On paper, Infestor Ultralist Baneling just rolls over and chops through. But, well, we don't play on paper. More SE. The Zergling counterattacks have just been impeccable. Constant. But if Clem commits, like if he builds bunkers, they're not gonna hold. If he keeps army back at home, he can't push forward. But somehow Serral is doing almost as well as Clem is doing with the drops, with his Zergling counterattacks for minimal cost. And that is keeping him in a very strong position. He's got the army split throughout. Clem coming down the center. There's 3 infestors scattered all throughout the map. One underneath, one on the other side. Oh. That one infestor just holding. Another drop. Another base dead. Serral has now lost 4 hatcheries, though Clem continues to lose SCVs. And if you don't have Corruptors with it, 1 medevac! Not quite taken down. The main army. The infestor spotted by the incidental scan. A big pickoff for Clem. And he might use that to leapfrog forward. He has the army supply lead as well. Microbial Shroud could be a great use in this fight. He puts it on the Banelings. It does nothing against the Widowmines, but it does plenty against the Marines and Marauders. 2 infestors. Serral starting to build up a bank, though. The infestor targeted. There's not a... He just scans over himself. 3 orbital commands is not enough to just keep scanning. The Corruptors finally find an opportunity to pick off the Liberator that was defending, but Serral committed a lot of his supply. So Clem retreating back right at the edge of the creep. The Ultra, still no kite displating. Still no Ultraless speed. That's such a huge deal. And it's adding up now, as Clem is able to pop those Ultralists like overripe tomatoes. Takes down another one. There's not enough energy for Fungal. Microbial Shroud is 100 energy. You don't rebuild that quickly. That's several minutes. Another hatchery dead. The Marines and Marauders need to go to rehab or the unit's lost tab soon at this rate, but they take out the hatch down the center. Clem just... he can't seem to secure the 12 o'clock base. Moving around the corner, but now he's running to the ends of the earth. Serral will chase him there, and the Corruptors will make sure he never escapes. Another drop moving in, trying to get something done, while all of these units are torn apart. He might be able to take out another hedge. No, picks it up, but the Liberator on top of everything. Serral, he drops on the other side. Scans the drones. Saving some of them with Burrow is always a nice... The Widow Mines. He's moving some forward. Maybe too far forward. One Widow Mine will connect. Mediocre damage. The Corruptors are chasing down the Medivacs. He still has plenty. The production continues. The Widow Mines gets a double detonation. And Serral dragging out the mine hits. Both players. Almost no money in the bank, and they can't remax out. Still no Ultralusk upgrades for Serral. But they're doing enough to draw fire, and Clem just cannot take this base. That is his main command center, by the way. He lifted his main orbital command. He's using his precious few scans. There's no chance of actually going for a Raven at this stage. He doesn't have the gas, nor the Tech Lab starport. And honestly, Ravens don't really have the detection radius they need to justify their presence. A Widow Mine at the Watchtower, while Burrow does not claim it. Meanwhile, another stim over to the right side. The army supplies are dead even, though Clem's economy is hurting. The Widow Mine's taking big bites. The Corruptors are chasing it down, putting a timer on every one of these drops, which is its entire intent. He's chasing it down. Another couple full Medivacs are taken out. But the Bio-Army over to the left flank. The Ultras. The Widow Mine connects. Is there an Infestor? And if there isn't, you just can't trade with this. Clem will just keep stimming and winning. But with the Corruptors, he finally chases down the Medivacs. The command center will be lifting, but more SCVs vulnerable. And Clem running out of real estate here. Serral is not mining so comfortably either, but it's comfortable enough. A more decisive victory. And Serral takes 3 in a row. Clem struggling to get a foothold for pretty much the entire game. And eventually he just ran out of income. Serral never realized he didn't have the Ultra upgrades. But in the end, did it even matter? Serral, now on match point. 1 game away from bringing us to a final best of 3. And Clem, he's so close. It does feel like maybe a month ago, these games easily could have tilted, somewhat puns intended, towards the Frenchman. But Serral is just capitalizing. Feel like that Rorschach game. That's not the mindset you need. Especially against the most dangerous player in the world by far. I saw a pretty good balance suggestion that someone posted for how we actually balance Zerg and make it fair for, well, everyone. And, you know, I'm starting to think that maybe it has some merit. I mean, I'll just show you the suggestion. It's not too long, but you can give me your thoughts on whether or not this is a viable option for how to make the game kind of fair for everyone. So the suggestion is cut off one of Serral's hands. Which one? Well, depending on which one, I think maybe you could just start playing Protoss, but Anyways, maybe that could be a stretch goal for Homestory Cup 3rd. Pool first yet again. I believe the only hatch first was on Rorschach so far. So it's interesting. I think he knows he's gotten Clem tilted. The pool first is much safer, but obviously with a hatchery later, and it's not balanced out by getting a queen earlier. Everything is a little bit later. The only benefit, and it's a significant benefit, but the only real benefit is safety against the first Reaper. Unless you're gonna do some crazy cheese timing, which, if ever there was a time, but Serral with 2 lings. Just 2. He knows the Reaper timing. The Overlord's on the pervert pillar. Is that intentional? Yeah, there's no way that's not intentional. Clem deliberately avoiding the pervert pillar Overlord and sending his Reaper out the other direction. I'm reasonably sure that the quicker pathing is directly out of the barracks, but taking a slight detour to try to keep Serral off guard. Unfortunately, the queen is already ready. And 2 Zerglings are not enough. Well, it really depends on the micro. The SCV on the run, the Marine microing back, and this is just any amount of delay on the command center is a big win in making the pool first a lot more economical. So we delayed the command center by maybe 15 seconds. He drags the Reaper back across the map, and that allows him to get a creep tumor completely untouched. And potentially a 3rd hatchery. Serral has no gas, which means everything sunk. Just take them. Sunk into the minerals. What are words? The Reaper and the Queen. This is restricted layer space. That doesn't work as well if it's ground units. Well, Reapers are closer to flying than we are, Susan. I knew you'd bring that up. No, we're not bringing anything up. That's the main problem. That's what I've been trying to say. We all heard you. It's just, we already knew. And you're kind of just beating a dead horse. What's a horse? Sorry, I blacked out for... Banshee on the way with Cloak. And a Roach Warren for Serral. For the first time. Which makes some sense considering he's going to have 3 hatches this early. He's relying on Queen Defense. He could potentially get the economy to go mass Roaches significantly earlier. And it really plays off the gasless... So, if you try to go Zergling speed, it's just so delayed. As demonstrated here, when the Hellions just get in. What happened to the Queen? There's nothing there. The Hellions just get in. The drone's gonna try to close in, but still 5 of them getting char-broiled. And 6 in total for 2 Hellions and some mining time. Not a lot, but anything adds up. Like, the entire benefit of this build is getting a strong economy with solid defense. Like, you have almost no aggressive potential. That's what you're trading out. But losing anything... And now he's got a drone waiting to build itself into, like, an Evo chamber. Kind of like a probe blocking off with a shield battery situation. But a bit more unwieldy. The Spore Crawler finishes at the last possible second. He's just gonna... Oh, there you go. And serving double duty there. There's a Roach. Gonna get a single hit off. He actually kills the Spore. Which extra benefit. 3rd command center once again under the Overlord of the Natural. The Pervert Pillar. Watching, looking. It's kind of its whole thing. Banshee racking up some more kills. Clem doing his best to whittle down Serral's economy. Is his best good enough so far? Not quite. And I fear this game as well. Serral's at 64 drones. He's got +1 carapace on the way. Clem starting as 1-1, so he's not going to be in dire straits economically. Infestation pit, and then, or alongside 2 Evo chambers? Well, I guess he has already 1 Evo chamber upgrading carapace, so that's kind of the relevant point, but... Zergling speed on the way. Roaches are just the very larva-efficient choice for defense against the Hellions. Eventually, and very quickly actually, their usefulness is severely reduced, especially against siege tanks and medevacs. So eventually you do want Zerglings and Banelings. And once you get the economy, and you've already used that larva on your infrastructure, well, that's the time. He's still getting roach speed, adding on the carapace, but a double drop's headed out. He's going to have enough roaches to deflect it, but of course you have to chase it down in order to deal with it directly. Meanwhile, the Hellions on the left, the roaches drag to the right. And, oh, misses an opportunity for a couple swipes, but 2 drones. Could have been better. I guess it could have been worse, but he loses all 3 Hellions for almost nothing. Not that they we're going to find much more success as time goes on. And Clem has 64 SCVs back at home. He's going up to barracks 4 and 5, which is actually quite late. He's not going to have... Well, you can already see it reflected in the supply. Roach Ravager versus a low production Terran is quite a stark difference for the King in the North. Hive, 8-minute Hive. You'd be hard-pressed to get a Hive at 8 minutes on the 12-worker patch, which is the last 11 years up until about 2 weeks ago. Adrenal glands and 3 infestors on the way. Serral at 82 drones. Ultraless Cavern will begin. We'll see. I bet he'll remember the upgrades this time. Still don't know if he realized at any point. The Sporimeter. The Sporchard put together in order to zone out the medevacs as much as possible. Fungal catches a few. The others dart behind the mineral line. And, well, the medevacs don't have boost, it seems, as they'll give him the runaround. He picks up a few, but the survivors are not particularly numerous. And Clem, boxed out on the left, driven back on the right. And Serral comfortably taking the hatchery down the center. Clem headed down a familiar path. The drops all over the place. More drops than a Skrillex album here, but they just haven't gotten it done. He hasn't been able to look like he's in a winning position against the Ultralists since the game on Rorschach. So, without Ghosts and Liberators, I think one of the big issues in that game was the medevac count. Usually too few is a big issue, but too many is almost as significant. 15 medevacs instead of like 8 medevacs and 6 to 8 liberators is clearly quite a significant issue. Maybe 10 medevacs and 4 liberators, but certainly not double digits. There's almost no scenario where over 10 medevacs is worth it over having liberators. Or occasionally just more ground army supply, which is still better than having 15 medevacs. But he takes down a hatch down the center. That was a sentence, but the Ultras are bearing down on the 4th. A few token Marines. The scouting party that will spot impending doom. The Planetary has got Microbial Shroud on the army. The Banelings just roll through. The Ultras will finish off the base. Cancels another command center. Another Microbial Shroud. The bullets, they do nothing. And, well, the Microbial Shrouds, the Timu Dark Swarm, is more than enough to cleave through. And now Clem beaten back to 3 bases, while Serral is comfortably on 4 and uncomfortably on 5. The income continuing to climb like his potential for prize money here in this tournament. Oh, who's going to get a lot of prize money? Just whoever gets the most, really, is what we're determining now. The Ghost Academy and the Spire on the way. Either sides, obviously. Clem's done a great job of keeping the creep spread at bay. And medevac. There was not enough space in the corner to keep the medevac out of range of the queens, and they'll have their revenge. Couple more command centers for Clem. And oh, that is a hefty, hefty army there. 6 ultras. Chitinous plating and ultraless speed. Completed. Wow. Clem's trying siege tanks, which Microbial Shroud is a strong counter to. But enough siege tanks are a counter to everything on the ground eventually. So down goes another Ultra. There are 4 infestors tagging along with all this. Burrow's on the way. 3-3 plus 3 Carapace is about to finish for Serral, which is ridiculously quick, significantly faster. The changelings, hey boys, pumped up. Oh. Well, the changelings. Microbial Shroud will lead the charge. The Ultras follow through it. He cancels the planetary. Ghost will line up the shots and they'll punch right through the Shroud. Does nothing against the ability/spell damage of the Ghost. Overlord speed is not... Yeah, Serral realizing he doesn't have Overlord speed the moment that he loses all of his Overseers. And the Overseer tax is possibly the most hidden expense at this stage of the game, where spending 50 gas and 50 minerals on each Overseer, it adds up. You could easily lose 20, 30 Overseers in one of these extreme late games. Serral, usually less likely to do so. But many other much more mortal Zergs, normal human Zergs, which doesn't make any sense, but, you know, Kerrigan happened, so whatever, have a tendency to lose easily double-digit Overseers. And then it starts getting into the thousands of resources just to have detection. I'd be like, well, Terrans have to spend thousands, but it's just minerals for orbital commands. And unlike any other game thus far, he's going to have more CCs than an angry email chain. And that means plenty of mules, plenty of scans, which contributes to a potentially false but much more dramatic sense of security. The Dropper Lords are loaded up as Serral is going to try to overrun the base. Ultraless drop harass! But which Overlord is the Ultraless skin? It fits only one. Has to really stretch out for it, but, you know, work up to it. Meanwhile, the scan, yep, he's getting everything. But the problems are now mounting. As the drop heads towards the main, the Ultra is going to be cleaving through. Notably, not a single Hydra so far in this series. I just want to point that out, as the Ultras find themselves in the main. The Fusion Core is on the way for Clem, but he's got to deal with this. The Ghost Academy cloven in twain. The building upgrades will somewhat ironically be ripped apart by the Zerglings before they can complete. And down the center, the Ultras cutting through the planetary fortress. It took a little more effort than before, but it's still more than enough. The engineering bays are burning. Carrick is burning. And the hopes of Clem potentially with them. And the engineer... Oh, no. It's... The building armor and high-sec auto-tracking are vulnerable. I'm sure Serral's going to notice this momentarily. Though, they may actually complete, because Serral focused on rebuilding back at home, which is probably the more important priority, to be fair. He's going to build some more turrets. Did he rebuild the Ghost Academy? Yeah, he's already done so. Building armor. High-sec auto-tracking did finish. The Zerglings unburrow in the main. They're just going to work on the supply depots, but Clem, with 5 orbital commands and 3 other command centers and multiple planetaries, is not at risk of being supply blocked anytime soon. Now, Vipers being added in. We've got the full complement of both sides' unit compositions now. We're going to have advanced ballistics for the Liberators. I assume Caduceus Reactor? Not yet. For medevac energy regen. Serral building up a bank for the next series, potentially. As again, if he wins this game, we gotta play another best of 3, which it kind of feels Clem might have been playing for. Though I doubt you play multiple 20-minute games with the intention of doing it all again. It's just Serral is at least a half step ahead of him. A little more than that. On the base to the south. The Ghost will line up some shots, but somehow most of the Vipers and Infestors, Zerg has left the game! But Serral has remained. And he loses a huge amount of army. But Clem, wow, okay, actually, 3 Infestors, a Viper, 5 Ultralisks. And he actually only kills 2 Ghosts and 5 Marauders. But he does get the Planetary. He breaks through that location. Serral is just expanding. He's got a hatchery finished at the 3 o'clock location, which in a more fair game should be Clem's. What am I watching? He burrowed a drone as he expanded to the corner, but 17 Ghosts! A Nidus network finally on the way. The siege tanks behind the lines. The Infestor count was battered down to 1. But Serral is just... And Serral does this more than anyone else. He's like, well, I need to mine as much of this base as possible. Clem's obviously going to want it. He's got the forward bases fully saturated. The bases he can more... He has no money. This is so important. He is not even mining from his third-ish. He is sending all of his drones forward. So that way, not only does he mine more, but he denies Clem those resources. And this is something that we see actually, like, this reminds me more of Age of Empires 2, where the priority, drops on drops. And with that many ghosts, it should be easy enough. He takes down the overlords, but gonna focus down the center. Yeah, every single resource. It is a finite amount of minerals and gas. The planetary fortress, blinding cloud, but at point blank range, it can still easily see the ultras. A second planetary lines up some shots. Banelings will finish off the planetary just barely. The overseer's taken down on the way out. He still has 11 of them. The forward hatchery is taken out. Serral re-expanded to the bottom left corner. 5 more command centers for Clem. The Banelings, another clutch of them, morphing. He has 8 orbital commands, the Ocho, with 5 more command centers on the way, which is pushing it, in my humble and modest opinion. And Serral now going to be actively mining via Nidus network from these in every single mineral and gas. And if he mines, so a drone, workers besides mules mine very approximately 1 mineral per second. It's a little bit less than that most of the time, effectively. But, so if these drones mine for 1 minute, they've been worth it. They can be replaced. Unless you put a price on lava, but... And, again, every single mineral is one that Clem will never mine. And I think Serral is thinking that far ahead. Because killing someone with 20 ghosts is not really something you do. Okay? No matter how much the ghost is nerfed. The ghost cannot be interrupted on snipe, and it has more basic range, which means it's even harder to kill before it kills you. But with less HP at 100 and more supply means there are less ghosts, and they're easier to kill on the open field. But behind mass planetary, a Venn diagram of freedom with the Liberators, and a whole bunch of siege tanks, good luck. Have fun. You probably won't. But the Nidus in the main, again a drop to try to hold it down. And it's a ghost. It's just mass ghost. There's less bio units that aren't ghosts than there are that are ghosts. Yeah, that was... math. The numbers don't lie. They spell disaster for everyone who's not a ghost at the moment. Infestor with full energy. Serral actively mining from this bottom left corner, which is certainly supposed to be Clem's base. The Changelings. Changelings now die en masse out of solidarity as a quality of life upgrade for everyone but the Changelings. It has severely reduced the effectiveness of the Mass Overseer style. The Mass Overseer is still very important to deal with potentially cloaked ghosts. Another Nidus in the main, but the Nidus defense ghosts are there. I do think the drones got that that value, and they're just going to take the escape Nidus, or not. Okay. He's going to pop out some Zerglings. It's actually enough to save the Nidus. What am I watching, Serral? Okay. Oh, and the Zerg... Whoa, whoa, whoa! Meanwhile, another Nidus in the main. Clem pulled back yet again. And somehow Serral's Zergling counterattacks, despite the fact this looks more like a campaign mission than it does a multiplayer game. Somehow Serral's... Well... Go Nova! Use the artifact! Oh, wait. Viper gets outflanked by missile turrets. It can abduct siege tanks again, and it likes to show it off. But abducts a single tank and then gets obliterated. The siege tanks target firing the ultras and take out another one. The Zerglings can't even burrow before the ghosts take it out. Though Clem wasn't 100% sure of that. Serral's still long-distance mining from this base. And so far, he's mined 8,000 more minerals and 3,000 more gas. Serral's... There's still a burrowed Zergling in the main, serving as the vision. Just enough of it for another Nidus. And Clem is not reacting. Oh, no. Serral doesn't even have anything in the Nidus right now because he wasn't expecting it to actually be successful. Clem finally going to overtake this base. And the Zergling... Well, there's nothing left here to defend. Clem can just retreat if he's willing to give up that 3 o'clock base at least. There are now 11 orbital commands. As we go to the extreme late game. The Nidus, nothing actually came out of it, but it will drag a few ghosts back. There are now 22 ghosts, 12 siege tanks, 3 liberators, and 8 medevacs. Which, you may not like it, but that's the ideal Terran unit composition. Serral now building Niduses like it's Brood War to reinforce his bases. Why not? Just scanning. So, Serral already has his eventual transition banked up. He has the Greater Spire. He's very slowly working his way up to the flyer upgrades. And the way Serral likes to play this, which no one else ever really gets to, there are drones inside the Nidus that showed up for a moment. Bit awkward here. But the way Serral likes to play it is we get down to almost no mining, and then he goes Broodlords. When you can no longer build an army to replace the one you have. And he can kind of dictate the pace of it. When it becomes almost a chess match, that's when the Broodlords go for checkmate. But before that, Broodlords are unwieldy. They cannot move very quickly, which means they really struggle. Oh, the Funko! They really struggle to hold more than one location. So Serral's goal is to boil this all down to one location on the map. And it looks like it's going to be the 3 o'clock eventually, as he's now actively mining it. He's only mined like 50 gas. He's going to lose a lot of drones, but the minerals are already about a third of the way gone. Clem has 10,000 minerals in the bank as well. All right, it's not like he's hurting for economy. Serral has lost 12,000 more resources. Remarkably few resources lost considering this game, but we kind of sprinted to the late game, and we've been there for about 15 minutes. Serral had a hive done, and Clem had ghosts before the 10-minute mark. Or at least a ghost academy. The ghosts, they can cloak. They don't need to. They got a planetary to back them up. The corruptors. The Zerglings underneath. This is not a planetary. Incredibly notably. There's still a Nidus in the main, just a permanent resident here. That burrowed Zergling has just been chilling the whole time. But Serral, 6,000 gas to 3K, but his army value is 3,400 gas to 5,000. So that's where a lot of it is clearly invested. The drone's a bit optimistic on the long-distance mining here. See, actually, well, you can't interrupt the snipes anymore. But the ultras trundling through. The Ghosts lining up the shots. The Corruptors are going to melt through the command center. He only has 11 more orbitals to fall back to. So overall, Serral destroyed 17 SCVs. The command center, obviously, which doesn't factor into this tab. Or maybe it does, and it just doesn't show up. He lost 800 gas to 300, I guess is the count we need to look at. I'd love to see some long-distance mining via Nidus, all right? Which is technically possible, but requires a redonkulous amount of micro. You have to manually load the drones in and out of the Nidus each time. They don't automatically just pop out. But technically, it can be done. And actually, technically, it can be faster than mining from a hatchery if you do it perfectly, like one of those AI scripts. AI is in actual scripts, not as in shallow learning mechanisms. With like 2,000 APM. Oh my god. Clem scans the map. Map hacks with extra APM and a bit more investment. 23 Brood Lords. 11 spores on the way. He's putting the spores together down the center. I don't know if he's going to cancel it or... Serral at 202 supply. So, popping those drones back out after he gets the oversupply. And that might be the only way you could beat this 110. You could beat 28 ghosts. The Lord of the Broods. We'll see. The Brood Lords in the sky, the ghosts on the ground. But they were all of them deceived. For another unit was made. The Infestor burrowed deep beneath the earth. And we'll see if it can unburrow and bind them. The Ghosts off to the left side. The Spore Crawlers moving forward with the army. The Zerglings countering to the bottom left. There's still 2,500 gas. And, well, significantly less, but an amount of minerals there. The flock of Broodlords. So, the issue now for Serral is that Broodlords are very, very slow. Just unbelievably... Just a gratuitous amount of scans out of Clem. He has so much money, though. There is some value in just mining this out so he knows how many minerals he'll be left with, because there's probably still going to be counters, but we're going to mine the entire map. It seems very likely at this stage. Remember Serral mining those forward bases first, and now he has the income still from the bases behind. He still has 55 drones. The 21 Broodlords against 27 Ghosts. He's got 3 Ultras, 2 Infestors. It's a very dead SCV. The Corruptors trying to knock out whatever Liberators. But most of the Ghosts are over to the right flank. He could have kept up with the scans. It was actually just a bit lazy not to. Lines up the shots. The snipes will go through, as long as the Ghost survives the onslaught from the fully upgraded Broodlords, by the way. 3-3 in the air and on the ground for the Broodlings. Though most of the damage is usually dealt by the Broodling strike when they whip out those Broodlings. It's a corrupt system, though, all right? The Broodlings, they might look like little Broodlords in and of themselves, but they never grow up to be Broodlords. It's the Corruptors, aptly named, that instead become the Lords of the Land. Especially when the Queens are gunned down and the Broodlords ignore them. The whole feudal system starting to collapse, but... The Spores out in front. There's a few Vikings on the way. A single Thor, because Clem is maxed out. He's at 176 army supply. He's got 11k minerals, but only 2,000 gas in the bank. Which is probably the most relevant. This war may be fought with Broodlords and Ghosts, but the next war may be fought with Marines and Zerglings. Especially if these players aren't careful about it. Knocks out another siege tank. The Ghost will cloak. There's a fungal, though! And chews through half a dozen. He got a little too close. And he got burned for it. But the sheer amount of Ghosts, another volley. A fusillade of snipes. The Broodling's not even enough to chew through a single siege tank. Their damage is actually very, very... Most of the damage is in drawing friendly fire, as opposed to doing damage in and of themselves. Gonna fire off some more shots. The Broodlord's moving forward. Does he have Neural Parasite? No. 12 more Corruptors on the way. The Ghost getting some more shots. The Queens and Spore Crawlers getting some real damage here. The Vikings cutting back. There's actually no Corruptors. Finally, the reinforcements arrive. Only +1 ship weapons. You can hear the Ghost dying. Yeah, we get it. We get it. Dozens of Ghosts dying. 18 Ghosts dead. Clem has taken out 8 Broodlords and 7 of his own Ghosts. As the not-so-friendly fire is taking quite a toll. He isn't... well, if he unsieges his tanks, the ground army moves in. If he doesn't unsiege, well, the ground army dies to the tanks. No! Oh, that was Shades of Hydra there. The orbital command. Not that he doesn't have any to replace them, but... the Broodlords, still 20 to 19 Ghosts. The fact that the Broodlords now potentially outnumber the Ghosts does not bode well for the Frenchman, who's completely out of gas. Serral is denying potentially the last gas geysers. The Ghost snipes are going out, but it's not quite enough. They cost 75 energy now, and while they do more damage, it's still the same amount of snipes to kill a Broodlord from full HP. The Vikings are cutting off to the side. Get another Brood. But Clem is back to making Marines. Serral is back to making Zerglings, though he still has enough gas. And in fact, he's still mining the last dregs of it in the top right. Is that the end? Yes. 0. 0 mineral income for Clem, though. He's still long distance mining some. Almost 0 gas. We are in the end game. The board is set. Serral will use some of his very last gas on a few more Broodlords. I think correctly. As soon as he sees more Marines, he knows how bad this is for Clem. And here come the Zerglings! For the first time in, like, over 10 minutes. Dozens of Zerglings gracing the field. The Ultras have survived throughout all this. The meat shields covering. And Serral is bearing down. He is steps away from a 4-0 victory and forcing Clem into a final best of 3. The Zerglings continue streaming through. Hellbats and Marines are all that's in production. That tells a very obvious story to Serral. He has 1 Infestor, 100 Zerglings. There's still a couple Ultras. Wait, no. The Ultras are dead. They just died. As all the Ultras before them. There will be no more Ultras. But the Zerglings, is there an Infestor? No. There's only a handful of Banes. Is that enough? He picks up. He evacuates. The Hellbats will be abandoned. They don't even have Blue Flame. The Broodlords are trying to move forward. Many of them badly bruised. Serral taking this base for like the 5th time. 17 SCVs dead. 4 remain. Back to the Brood War with it. And the Brood Lord still reigning supreme. The Banelings are closing in. GG! Serral 4. Clem nothing. In a much more methodical process. Serral with no money in the bank, but Clem with even less. Serral will sweep the first series 4 games to 0. That means a single best of 3 stands between Serral and turning it all around. And Clem just clearly... he's gotten so close. But yet so incredibly far. And here we go. Jimmy. A final best of 3. Now that both of them have lost a series in this tournament. That was Clem's advantage for being undefeated thus far. But no longer. In the top right, from Team Liquid, the Frenchman in the blue, the rank 1 Terran in the world, it's Clem. Facing off against the player who just swept him 4 games to 0. The #1 player in the world. The greatest of all time. The finisher. It's Serral. The Grand Finals. The very final ace match in Homestory Cup 29. $10,000 on the line before we get finished. It'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Jimmy, what are we at? Yeah, we're double dipping. 1,873 likes on this video, on this cast. I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, a pretty big chunk of it. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As we determine whether Serral can complete the domination, or if Clem can pull himself out of this nosedive. And he was so close. I'd argue the game on Rorschach, Clem had at least an even money position. That previous game on Rainfall, it was a matter of one base for 1 or 2 minutes. But Serral? Now, well, first, I want to once again remind you, Homestory Cup 30. And the reason we're telling you so early is because, obviously, sometimes if you're traveling from a little further away, like myself, it's important to plan early, obviously, flights. And there are some hotel deals, and you can find more on the site and the information. Not sponsored, I just, you know, it is the community StarCraft 2. And if there was ever something to attend, well, it's about it. Especially in the post-COVID times, but... So, make sure to check it out. And, of course, there are other ways to support if you're not able to attend. But, the conclusion. And, we gotta talk about the new patch, of course. So, I'll tell you this. No other Zerg was able to defeat Clem. No other Zerg. But Serral so far... Off with the hand! I don't... Sorry. The mental effort it's going to take, I think, after... Now, on paper, a best of 3 should be easier against Serral. Serral is the most experienced in the entire world, well, in finals and also in long series. And that's Zerg's greatest strength, right? And Serral, more than everyone, is adapting and overcoming. Evolving, if you would. But... And interesting, I don't know if we were required to use different maps, but we are already starting off on a map that we did not see in the previous series, though we may have if it was a little bit later. And a Hellbat timing? In this economy? A 2-base Hellbat timing. Clem really gonna... He's putting it out there. He's expecting a counterattack, but this has to do damage. The thing is, the counter to this, like so many things, is Queens. A well-executed Hellbat timing can be very dangerous, but it's just so hard to get damage done against a Zerg player who's paying attention. Oh, come on! The Zergling gets in and it spots the medevac. He starts a spine... How does he do it? A single Zergling should never... He already had Hellions. The fact he started... He knows. He knows this is very likely to be Hellbats now. Seeing the medevac is enough. That's it. That's all he needed. A tiny glimpse of a single unit. And he's building Evo chambers to wall. He's just going to try to funnel this army. And does that actually wall off the Hellbats? He's building a wall to keep the Terrans out. And any amount of time wasted here. The Queens will surround. One gets incinerated, but the Spine Crawler will be the difference. He can technically dodge the Spine Crawler hits, but the amount of time this is wasting. He has a Transfuse ready. Use on the Queen. She gets put in a corner, but her sacrifice not in vain. And I think we could say... Oh, and behind it, the Zergling counter. The Spine Crawler, that one Zergling, made the entire difference. If he hadn't spotted the Spine, he doesn't have... If he hadn't spotted the medevac, he does not have the Spine Crawler. And this does a lot more damage. I don't know if it wins the game, but there's no way Serral defends it without heavy losses. I underestimated how much it was doing. But instead, Clem is torn asunder. And Serral, in less than 6 minutes, on the 8-worker patch, he's now 1 game away. What a disaster. Well, that certainly bodes ill. This is what I was afraid of. Clem very simply just not having the, Hellbat all-ins are like the random glaive to depth timings against Serral. Everyone tries them occasionally when they're just like, I just need a win, bro. And if you boil the game down to a single attack, a single sort of moment, then I'm doing a lot of mineral micro here. That's why you see the worker count getting so low for a second. He's actually using acceleration micro, which is technically making the SCVs not mine. And then he's shift-clicking onto the minerals in order to, you see there, it kind of boosts the SCVs onto the minerals. And it gets you marginally faster mining. And he's actually doing that incredibly well. And this is a huge part of why Clem just seems to do everything quicker. Despite his struggles, I think, mentally. The mechanics, I mean, there's arguably no one better mechanically, even Serral, I think. It's just Clem sometimes plays himself into a corner, and Serral is more than happy to keep him there. I was afraid that it wasn't... I don't think that first series was playing for the best of 3. I think it was just Clem giving it all he got and coming up short. Getting... And not even tilted. It's just outplayed by that much. 2 out of 4 games just knife's edge. 2 out of 4 less so. But now he needs 2 in a row. He's gotten 0. And it's not going to be a particularly quick overall series if Serral is able to take this. Well, it depends. It doesn't really depend. If Clem just taps out right now, even then, it's still been quite an experience. And thank you for sharing it with me. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, of course. But Serral. And he was saying on his stream, just a couple days before this tournament, because he just played Maestros of the Game on the previous patch, so he wasn't even practicing the new patch until the last few days. And he was saying on his stream, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't get out of the group stage. Anyways, he lost like 1 game out of 12. I think it was in ZVZ as well. I don't know if Serral lost a game that wasn't ZVZ so far in this tournament. Which, off with the hand! And the thing is, the buffs to Zerg on the new patch are mostly just, you could do the same thing you were doing, but better. What is going on with this? Sort of, what in the hell? Is that a graphical glitch? What is it supposed to be? That's like a weird, like, canvas thing. Ah, it just looks odd from that angle. Just get out of the pool, but, so, Zerg, both in general, whenever there are significant changes, and specifically these, there's nothing that really changes how you want to play. Maybe you add in a few more mutas, but with a bit more larva, a bit cheaper upgrades, though the hatchery is 25 minerals more expensive. Like, you just kind of do the same thing, but a little bit better. Whereas with the 8-worker start, now, we saw Serral using the pool first a lot. I don't believe he used it here, but Clem dancing around the queen. Will get boxed out a bit, trying to run to bounce over to the side, but now the Reaper Hellion. Oh no! He's just gonna run by. And Zergling speed is already done. And again, just things not going well for Clem. He's not getting these little advantages that you kind of need in the early game. And he's committing to trying to gain them. But he's already taken so much damage on the Hellions that he can't snipe the creep tumors. He lost the Reaper, so he doesn't have that sort of buffer. He's going for Cloak Banshee behind. I really want to point out as well, not a single Hydralisk thus far, unless I'm misremembering. It's been Ling Bane, maybe with some roaches, definitely with some infestors, and Mutas. So the staple of Zerg versus Terran for most, especially in the previous patch, was Hydras, which are great fire support. They're not too expensive, and once you build up a critical mass, they can really do a lot of damage. But I think with Microbial Shroud seeing a bit more use, and the changes slightly to Larva, well, very simply, it seems like Serral just skipping the Hydras. He hasn't even considered them. And so far, it's worked out perfectly for him. So Hydras are kind of a weird middle ground. And that's partially why they're so common, is they're very good at being pretty good. They're not great. They can't chase down medevacs super reliably, but at least they have anti-air. They aren't very tanky, but that's why you have Lings and Banes in front. But they are quite gas-heavy, and they require a lot of upgrades, and they take separate upgrades than the Zerglings and Banelings, obviously. They take the ranged attack. So if you can skip them for something a bit more specialized, like Ultras and Infestors, or Mutalisks, well, and you cannot die in the process. That's the key part that a lot of people struggle with, is not dying to the first few medevacs when you don't have reliable anti-air, or you have very fragile anti-air in Mutas. In case you're wondering why other players, it's because against Clem, they just die. Like, you try to skip Muta, or you try to skip Hydras, or you go Mutas, you just die. You try to go Ling Bane, you get picked apart. It's only Serral with his impeccable queens. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, that's enough. He just makes such great use of them. Notice how, of the 5 hotkeys he has, 2 of them are queens right now. Most of his priority. And there's the infestation bit. Just skipping the Mutalist Den and the Hydralisk Den. Straight, potentially to Hive. And it very likely will work out for him. A tackle on the left flank. Clem, 59 SCVs. So, he does need to get some damage done. +1 Carapace is completed before Clem's 1-1 or Combat Shield. But the tank is jammed into a pretty nasty position here. Baneling speed is 5 seconds out, but that's a long 5 seconds. And the hatchery under fire. Lings and Banes from either side. Clem gonna retreat. May just have to pick up and get out. Slurps him up. The Banshees coming around, but too little and too late, as the Hive has already begun. The Banshees will redirect. The Overseers, the Queens will chase. They might be able to pick off one. Meanwhile, they drop over to the left side. Serral doesn't know exactly where it is, but he's prepared for it. The Stims, good target fire from Clem. Picks up, heads towards the main, where there's already Zerglings waiting. Because, well, it doesn't take a lot of intellectual acuity to figure out where the medevac's gonna go next. But the Banshee runs out of energy, and then it runs out of life. The Queen's more than ready. The Knitting Needles pin cushion it and take it down. And Serral, 79 drones. Hive nearly done. Upgraded Vantage. More workers. More handsome. Didn't say that. That's definitely debatable. Let's not make it weird, but Clem gonna drop the main. It's desperation. The Zerglings are enough. It was a mediocre trade, but... Another drop, or Banshee rather, shut down by the Queens. Another drop loaded up and sent out, but the Ultraless Cavern, yet again, on the way. We've seen the script, but we're going to try rewriting it one more time. Mass Widowmine is the choice for Clem. He hasn't yet used the high ground as well, which might be incredibly useful. The fact that you could get siege tanks and Widowmines on the high ground here. I haven't really seen... Most players consider anything but the open field and maybe vision blockers to be distractions, as opposed to terrain features to be utilized. But there's a lot of strong options if Clem is willing to use them. But I feel like he's got a bit of tunnel vision, especially recently. The Widowmines just die to the Banelings, straying too far onto the creep. The fourth base is spotted by a Zergling the moment it lands. A Fungal just barely too slow to catch the Marines, but easily overruns the siege tank. The main base, Adrenal Gland's on the way. It's not going to happen. The Spore's already ready. The Zerglings spread out. He's targeting the Widowmines. A few more will burrow. A few more will be taken down. That one fires, gets a big chunk. The Zerglings overrun the siege tank. The SCVs evacuate. The Marines are dropped out one by one, but that's far too slow. Zerglings over on the Marauders. He gets through the wall. The Fungal comes out with the dying breath of the Infestor. The Banelings close in, and their purpose is to die, and they do so dramatically. Serral up 40 supply. Ultra's in production, and Clem is reeling. 5 games in a row. Serral has claimed victory. And I fear it won't end there. Closing in. 12 SCVs dead. And there's almost nothing left. He has no economy. He doesn't have the upgrades. He has no counter to the Ultras. And honestly, Zerglings and Banelings might be enough. Clem just... It's not enough. That's a GG of Ultras. He's got to fight it out. The entire tournament's on the line. There's no tapping out now. A Widowmine drop attempted, but 200 supply of Serral. The finisher. GG! 6 games in a row. Serral with... Off with the hand. An overwhelming and decisive victory. Clem put up an incredibly strong fight, but it seems like the fight left him with that first series. Unfortunately, we reached the dilemma of, if we buff Zerg at all, well, Serral certainly took notice, and putting everyone else on it. Homestory Cup 29's champion, the finisher. It's Serral. Hopefully, you enjoyed, and hopefully you'll be joining us at Homestory Cup number 30, April 8th to 11th. Make sure to check it out on, well, the link in the description and in the comments, both for supporting and for potentially getting your tickets. So, thank you for watching. I'll be there, and I assume Serral and Clem, and, you know, a few other people as well. But thank you for watching. I certainly hope it made a big chunk of your day at least a little bit better. Got the means of motivation. Be awesome. Check out Patreon, YouTube membership. Thank you. Mule Tier patrons, Big Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate, Crazy Mouse, Mario Suit. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. Make sure to check out this video Jimmy picked out just for you. Thank you for watching. Good luck, have fun. Hope to see you next time. Hope it made your day a little bit better. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.